Good morning, General. General, do we have too many white officers in the Air Force?
Senator, what I really look at is the quality of all the officers that we have, and we look at the aspect of everyone who's qualified, meets the qualifications, is promoted. And when
I would agree with you, but that answer is not consistent with your August 9th memo. In your August 9th memo, you said that you signed on to that there should be a reduction, essentially, of about 9% of the white officers. That's 5,400. We have 5,400, too many white officers. And this is the real impact, I think, of this desire of the administration. I'm saddened to see this in this memo, of this obsession with sort of race-based politics being interjected into our military. How did you come up with the percentage of 67.5% of the officers should be white? And how did you come up with 13% should be black? And how did you come up with 10% should be Asian? And how did you come up with 1.5% should be American Indian and Native Alaskan? How did you come up with 1% being Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander? And how did you come up with 15% of our officers should be Hispanic or Latino?
Senator, that is based on that memo is on application goals, not the actual makeup of the force. And those numbers are based on the demographics of the nation.
Okay, well, all right. There's 10% of our country is Asian American. So is that where you came up with it? Just a percentage of the population?
Essentially.
Because right now the actual percentage, I mean, this is where this is a ridiculous conversation, to be perfectly honest. Because why didn't you come up with, or are you going to come up with the percentage of the overall force? Did you contemplate that? Of how many, black Americans should be in the Air Force? Or how many Asian Americans should be in the Air Force? Did you contemplate the total force percentages?
Senator, what we looked at was the aspect of providing opportunities for anybody who wants to serve.
Listen, if that were the case, if that were what was in this memo, I wouldn't be asking you these questions. But we have in a memo signed by you that you think right now there are too many white officers, and this is a blanket statement. And so I could go down the line of questioning of which of the 5,400 white officers that we have too many should be fired. Because that is the actual impact of all this. I agree with you. Your story about wanting to be the best pilot in the Air Force, regardless of race, that is what the military is supposed to be. It's this great meritocracy. It's why there's uniforms and haircuts. And I've heard so many of my colleagues talk about, infusing abortion politics into this. That is exactly what's wrong. This administration has infused abortion politics into our military, COVID politics into our military, DEI politics into our military, and it is a cancer on the best military in the history of the world. Those men and women deserve better than this. This idea that they have to go through these struggle sessions with DEI training, because trust me, I believe that we ought to have the broadest pool of applicants and get the best and the brightest, and we ought to be recruiting in various areas to make sure we have the best and the brightest from every community, regardless of your race or your gender or your ethnicity. But that's not what DEI is. DEI is an ideology based in cultural Marxism. And somehow, some way, we ended up in a place where a general in the Air Force is advocating for racial quotas, whether it be by applicants or the number of officers, or maybe the total unit. And I just think that's wrong. I think that's the wrong approach.
Anyone can see these racial quotas in our military are crazy. Now, some of you know that my father, retired Air Force Colonel Jack Martinez, graduated from the Air Force Academy and flew combat missions in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. His Hispanic heritage had zero to do with his success in the Air Force. There were no quotas back then. Qualified men and women always rise to the top in the military. It is the ultimate meritocracy, as it should be. And by the way, thanks for watching. If you like what we're doing here at Americans for Limited Government, please like and share this video and subscribe to us on YouTube and Rumble. So, how did we get to this point? According to Thomas Spoor of the Heritage Foundation, wokeness in the military is being imposed by elected and appointed leaders in the White House, Congress, and the Pentagon who have little understanding of the purpose, character, traditions, and requirements of the institutions they are trying to change. The push for it didn't begin in the last 2 years under the Biden administration, nor will it automatically end if a non-woke administration is elected in 2024. Wokeness in the military has become ingrained. And unless the policies that flow from it are illegal or directly jeopardize readiness, senior military leaders have little alternative but to comply. Woke is an ideology that undermines military readiness in various indirect ways. It undermines cohesiveness by emphasizing differences based on race, ethnicity, and sex. It undermines leadership authority by introducing questions about whether promotion is based on merit or quota requirements. It leads to military personnel serving in specialties and areas for which they are not qualified or ready. And it takes time and resources away from training activities and weapons development that contribute to readiness. And by the way, and not unrelated in my opinion, last year every branch of the military failed to meet recruiting goals. That's due in part to the fact that trust and confidence in our armed forces is down 25 points since 2018. In 2021, the annual Reagan National Defense Survey conducted by the Ronald Reagan Foundation and Institutes found that just 45% of Americans had a great deal of trust and confidence in the military. The military has not had such a hard time signing recruits since 1973, the year the U.S. left Vietnam and the draft officially ended. Now, let me give some examples of how wokeness has infected our armed forces. In 2015, then Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus rejected out of hand a Marine Corps study concluding that gender-integrated combat formations did not move as quickly or shoot as accurately, and that women were twice as likely as men to suffer combat injuries. He rejected it because it did not comport with the Obama administration's political agenda. Physical fitness has long been a hallmark of the U.S. military, but in recent years, fitness standards have been progressively watered down in pursuit of the woke goal of leveling the playing field. The Army, for instance, recently lowered its minimum passing standards for push-ups to an unimpressive total of 10 and increased its minimum 2-mile run from 19 to 23 minutes. And the new Space Force is considering doing away with periodic fitness testing altogether.